The fork froze in her hand. You want my leftovers? Victoria's icy voice slid through the marble corridor like a blade. That's what you're offering in exchange for healing me? The girl didn't flinch. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her tattered hoodie, shoes muddy, socks mismatched, but her eyes steady, burning with something Victoria hadn't seen in years. Certainty. Yes, ma'am. I can help you walk again. I just ask for what you throw away. The silence in the hallway stretched until it shattered with Victoria's laughter. Not the polite kind. The cruel kind that echoed off her chandelier and made the butler shift uncomfortably. You think I'd trust some little street rat with magic tricks? She scoffed. Do you know how many doctors I've paid? The girl nodded once. Probably more than I've seen in my whole life. Victoria's smirk stiffened. Her wheelchair hummed slightly as she turned toward the massive window. Outside, the sun was hitting just right, casting long shadows across the driveway where the girl still stood, shoes wet from the morning rain. You know I used to run marathons? Victoria's voice dropped lower. You know what it feels like to wake up one morning and realize your body has betrayed you? I know what it feels like to watch your grandma cry over a pot of boiling water because it's the only meal for the day. Victoria's face twitched. You've got security cameras, the girl added. You've seen me 3 nights a week after dark. I watch from behind the hedge. I see how you grab the armrests when no one's looking, how your toes curl when you're mad. Your body works, ma'am. It's your soul that's frozen. Get out. Victoria's voice was flat now. I will. The girl stepped back. But I'll be right across the street. Apartment 2B. With my grandmother. When you're done wasting food and time, you know where to find me. Victoria didn't reply. She just stared. Not at the girl, but at her own reflection in the glass. And for the first time in years, it didn't look powerful, it looked scared. Across the street, the girl's shoes splashed in shallow puddles as she walked away, slow and steady, like she already knew. This wasn't over. Not yet. Hi, my name is Malik. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, please hit like and subscribe right now. Your support helps us shine a light on real injustice. The mansion loomed behind her, but Amara didn't look back. She crossed the road carefully, weaving through puddles and cracks in the sidewalk that had outlived any city repair promise. Her building stood in sharp contrast to the Whitmore estate. 3 stories of rusted balconies, peeling paint, and the constant hum of struggle behind thin walls. But inside apartment 2B, something far more powerful lived. Did she laugh? Ruth asked before Amara even opened her mouth. Amara dropped her damp hoodie on the coat hook and sat across from her grandmother at the wobbly kitchen table. The same table where medicines were crushed into herbal teas, and where prayers were whispered not to the ceiling, but to memory. She laughed, like I was a joke. Ruth didn't frown. She nodded. Good. That means she heard you. People only laugh when they're scared to believe. Amara stared at the chipped edge of her teacup. She said I was a street rat. Well? Ruth leaned back, lifting her swollen feet onto a milk crate. Street rats have been surviving longer than queens. The room was warm, filled with smells of dried lavender and the faint remnants of burnt rice. A tiny stove clicked behind them, boiling the evening's only meal. A broth made from vegetables a neighbor couldn't sell. Outside, the Whitmore mansion lit up like a hotel, lights blazing in every window. But behind those lights, Victoria sat alone, hands clenched on the arms of her wheelchair, replaying the moment that girl had said, "Your body works, ma'am. It's your soul that's frozen." Across town, doctors called her incurable. They whispered terms like nerve degeneration, rare strain, and unresponsive to treatment. But none of them had ever said what that girl had. None had dared. Inside apartment 2B, Amara pulled out her notebook, pages filled with observations from weeks of watching. When Victoria took her pills, how her legs twitched when angry, the way she subtly shifted weight between hips when no one was watching. "She's not paralyzed," Amara said softly. "She's pretending so well." She started believing it herself. Ruth reached over and gently closed the notebook. "You've seen enough. Now comes the hard part. Waiting." "But what if she tries to hurt us?" Amara asked. "She's rich, Grandma. She could get me kicked out of school. Or worse." "She will," Ruth said without fear. "People like her always strike when truth threatens their comfort." "Then why aren't we afraid?" Ruth smiled, lines deepening around her eyes. "Because truth don't need armor. It walks slow, but it never misses." In the mansion, Victoria's fingers trembled. Not from illness, but from memory. That girl's eyes had reminded her of someone. A nurse, maybe, years ago. Someone who had said something similar before she was dismissed. The wind outside picked up. Curtains shifted. And for the first time in 8 years, Victoria felt something strange in her legs. A flicker. A pull. Like something long asleep had just turned over. She didn't tell anyone. Not her assistant. Not her doctors. Because deep down, she knew. That girl had seen her. And worse, she had understood her. The next morning, the Whitmore estate was unusually quiet. No morning staff chatter, no hum of kitchen prep. Victoria sat at her window, untouched breakfast growing cold beside her. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the girl's words echoed, "Your body works. It's your soul that's frozen." She clenched her jaw. No child, especially a poor black girl, would make her question herself. She grabbed her phone. "Get me everything on her," she barked to her assistant. "Name, school, family. I want it all." 3 hours later, the file sat on her lap. Amara Thomas, age 12. Lives in Riverside Gardens with grandmother, Ruth Thomas. Father, unknown. Mother, deceased in a factory fire 7 years ago. Straight A student. Full scholarship. No behavioral issues. No record. Victoria tossed the papers aside. Typical. Tragedy plus a sob story equals fake humility. But one note stuck out. Ruth Thomas, former hospital worker. Suspended after questioning doctor protocols. Quiet retirement after undocumented diabetic recovery. Recovery, her lips curled. What kind of nonsense are they peddling? Meanwhile, in apartment 2B, Amara helped Ruth crush dried bark into powder. The smell was sharp and bitter, the kind that lingered on fingers for days. "She'll come at us next," Amara said without looking up. "I felt it in her eyes. She's not done." "She never started," Ruth replied. "That woman's been fighting ghosts since before you were born. She just doesn't know they're her own." Amara poured the mix into a tea tin, labeled it with care, and placed it beside the others. Her notebook sat nearby, updated with new notes about Victoria's reaction. The twitch in her hands, the way her chin trembled when Amara had said soul. The calm was short-lived. That afternoon, Amara was pulled from her science class. Principal Macmillan folded his hands on the desk. "There's been a concern raised, Amara. Someone's claimed you've been trespassing, bothering residents. A donor, an important one, says you've been loitering near private homes." Amara's heart thumped. "I'm not accusing you," he cut in, but his tone was clipped. "I'm asking you to be careful. Stay away from certain neighborhoods." Back home, the building superintendent stopped Ruth by the mailboxes. "People are complaining," he muttered. "Noise, late-night smells, strange herbs. Might have to report it." "Report peace and quiet?" Ruth raised a brow. "Just saying rules are rules." Ruth didn't respond. She just took her mail, nodded politely, and walked away with dignity. But inside, she already knew. Victoria had launched her war. That night, Ruth made extra tea. The kind her mother used when storms came, not the ones outside, but the ones in people. "Why is she doing this?" Amara asked as they sipped. "Because she's scared," Ruth replied. Scared someone beneath her might hold the power to reveal the lie she's been living. Amara looked out the window. The mansion's lights were on again. But this time it wasn't just about watching. It was about preparing. If you're still watching, drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that matter. The rain returned on Thursday, soft but steady, drumming against the window panes of apartment 2B. Amara sat cross-legged on the living room floor, her notebook spread open like a battle map. Her pencil moved with purpose, drawing a diagram of Victoria's daily routine. Pill times, nurse visits, wheelchair usage, staff shift changes. Every pattern had been logged. Every twitch, every slip, every inconsistency was now a weapon. She grips the wheels harder when she's angry, Amara murmured, half to herself. And when she thinks no one's looking, Ruth added from the kitchen. Her feet press against the floor. Amara nodded. She's faking it, Grandma. Or maybe not faking. Maybe trapped. Ruth stirred the pot on the stove. Trapped by pride. Paralyzed by guilt. Same thing. Across the street, Victoria stared at her reflection in the hallway mirror. Her eyes looked tired, but beneath the fatigue, something else lurked. Doubt. Her legs had moved again the night before. A twitch. A shift. And again this morning. A cold shiver followed by warmth she hadn't felt in years. But pride wouldn't let her speak of it. Instead, she tightened her grip on the control pad of her motorized chair and rolled into the study. On the desk sat the medical report she hadn't opened in weeks. Dr. Hartwell's last tests showed something he hadn't dared explain. Neural activity where there should have been none. Could the girl be right? Victoria's jaw tightened. No. She refused to believe that some girl with second-hand shoes and herbal tea knew more than a panel of specialists with Ivy League degrees. And yet, the unease gnawed at her. By evening, the air between them had shifted again. Amara stepped outside, hood up, rain dotting her jacket. She didn't go far, just to the sidewalk opposite the estate, where the trees offered weak cover and the mansion glowed like a theater stage. She didn't need binoculars anymore. She knew the routine by heart. Inside, Victoria rolled past the kitchen, paused at the staircase, and looked toward the basement door. Her hand hovered over the keypad. A moment passed. Then she rolled away. But Amara had seen it. That hesitation. That instinct. Someone who wasn't paralyzed didn't flinch at the thought of stairs. She turned back toward her building, satisfied. The next day, Amara waited for her cue. At precisely 2 p.m., the butler left the estate with the housekeeper. Victoria was alone. Amara crossed the street and rang the service bell. Not the grand entrance, but the side one near the garage. Victoria answered herself, her chair humming softly as she opened the door. "You're persistent," she said coldly. "I've got time," Amara replied. Victoria studied her. "Still want my leftovers?" Amara tilted her head. "I don't want anything from you. I want to give you back something you lost. But first, you need to admit it." "Admit what?" "That you're not broken." Victoria's eyes narrowed. For a second, Amara saw something flicker. Pain? Shame? But it vanished behind a cold smile. "You're just a little girl with fairy tales and potions. And you," Amara said softly, "are a woman so scared to stand. You'd rather drown in your own lie." Victoria didn't respond. She stared at Amara for a long moment, then slowly shut the door without a word. But the damage was done. Amara's words didn't leave with her. They stayed behind, echoing in Victoria's chest like an itch she couldn't reach. By morning, the war had begun. The school principal called Amara into his office again. This time, he wasn't smiling. "There's been another complaint," he said, voice tight. "This time from the Whitmore Foundation directly. They fund several of our programs." Amara kept her voice steady. "What did they say?" "That you're harassing a disabled woman. Trespassing. Making threats." He leaned forward. "Amara, I've seen your record. I know who you are. But these kinds of accusations, especially from people with influence, can change futures. She nodded once, then quietly left. That evening, two men in suits knocked on their apartment door. One was from building management. The other claimed to be a city inspector. "We've received some anonymous tips," one said, flipping through a clipboard. "Herbal fumes, suspicious activity, possible health violations." Ruth didn't move from her chair. "Feel free to inspect," she said. "But if you're here because a rich woman doesn't like being seen, then don't bother pretending this is protocol." They left empty-handed but made sure the neighbors saw them leave. Later that night, Amara sat on the edge of her bed, fists clenched. "She's trying to destroy us," she whispered. "She's trying to scare you," Ruth corrected. "That's different. Scared people scream the loudest when the truth's too close." Amara looked over. "How did you survive it?" "I didn't always," Ruth said softly. "But I learned. When I worked at the hospital, a white doctor once told me I should stay in my place. After I saved a patient he misdiagnosed. You know what happened?" Amara shook her head. "He tried to get me fired, spread rumors. He even called child services on your mother. Said she was neglected because I was too busy pretending to be a doctor." Amara's breath caught. "What did you do?" "I documented everything. Waited. And one day one of his private patients came in, same illness I had treated before. No one else could help. So guess who they called?" "You." Ruth nodded. "I saved the patient. The board found out. He lost his license. I never had to raise my voice. Just stayed ready." A slow smile crept across Amara's face. "Then it's time we do the same." The next morning, she went to the school library. For hours, she searched public databases, news articles, legal filings. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, face lit only by the screen's glow. And then she found it. A single headline, "Victoria Whitmore marries tech tycoon days after injury." Another, "Inheritance dispute settled after sudden death." One article after another. The pieces began to fit. "She's not just faking her illness," Amara whispered. "She's hiding behind it." She clicked save and closed the browser. Now, it wasn't just about healing Victoria. It was about exposing her. Sunday morning, the mansion gates creaked open for the first time in days. Victoria hadn't invited anyone. But when she heard the bell ring and saw Amara standing at the front entrance, not the service door, flanked by Ruth and an unfamiliar woman in a crisp navy blazer, her hands trembled on the wheelchair controls. "You're trespassing," Victoria snapped. "I'll call security." Amara didn't flinch. "They'll want to see this too." Victoria's gaze shifted to the older woman beside Ruth. There was something familiar in her face, cold, clinical, observant. "I'm Dr. Naomi Gaines," the woman said calmly, "former neurologist at St. Luke's. You may remember me from your husband's case." Victoria's face paled. What is this?" Ruth stepped forward and opened a worn leather folder. Inside were medical reports, neurological scans, time-stamped footage. Amara pulled out a phone and tapped a button. A voice played, Victoria's voice, sharp and clear. "Just stick with the diagnosis. If the board finds out I can walk, I lose everything. Keep confirming the paralysis, and I'll double your fee." Victoria lunged to shut the door, but her arm froze mid-motion. Ruth's calm voice cut through the tension. "We've been recording, Victoria, for 6 months. 43 videos. In the garden, on the treadmill, climbing the basement stairs." Dr. Gaines added, "I examined your case. Your nerve activity shows full function. Your condition was never physical. It was psychological, induced, and then maintained for financial protection." Amara didn't speak. She just hit play again. The next video showed Victoria walking across her gym, wiping sweat, laughing. Victoria's mouth opened, then closed. She had no words left to weaponize. "You faked an injury to secure your late husband's estate," Ruth continued. You blackmailed doctors. You silenced anyone who questioned you, including my niece, who was your nurse. She warned your doctor before she was fired. Victoria's voice was brittle. You don't understand. He was going to leave me. I gave him everything, and he was trading me in like some old car. And so you chose lies over dignity, Amara said quietly. For a moment, the mansion's silence was suffocating. Then Ruth handed a second file to Dr. Gaines. These are copies being sent to the police, the media, the medical board, and the IRS. Victoria's eyes darted. Wait, please. But Amara stepped closer. Her voice calm. You wanted me gone. Out of your world. You tried to bury us. And instead, Ruth said gently, you buried yourself. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the authorities, maybe a neighbor. Victoria slumped in her chair. Her fingers trembled. Her legs, too. You don't have to end like this, Amara said softly. But you do have to face it. Victoria looked up at the girl she once laughed at, and for the first time in 8 years she stood. Not from healing, but from being seen. 6 months later, the Whitmore estate no longer looked like a fortress. The gates stayed open now, welcoming a steady stream of visitors. Mothers with children, students with backpacks, elders with walking sticks. The marble hall where silence once ruled now echoed with laughter and music. The mansion was no longer a symbol of power and pride. It was now the Ruth Thomas Healing Center, named in bold brass letters above the entrance. Funded entirely by seized assets, the center offered free herbal clinics, trauma counseling, and after-school mentorship programs for Black youth. Amara walked its halls every afternoon, notebook still in hand, observing, learning, teaching. Harvard had called twice, so had Columbia. She wasn't ready. Not yet. Her place, for now, was here. Look at you, Ruth said, watching her granddaughter speak to a group of kids about emotional healing. Talking like you own the building. Amara smiled. I kind of do. Across town, in a federal prison just outside Baltimore, Victoria Whitmore adjusted her thin blanket inside a 2-person cell. Her once perfect posture was gone. Shoulders hunched, face drawn, hair graying faster than time could account for. The same legs she once lied about had now weakened for real. Months of inactivity, court hearings, and stress had taken their toll. She depended on a wheelchair now, not one worth $15,000, but a rusted model with one squeaky wheel. And no one was filming. The guards didn't defer to her. The prisoners didn't care who she used to be. She was no longer Victoria Whitmore, billionaire widow. She was inmate 94725A, a woman who'd built a throne on lies and now had to sit in it for 25 years. The story had exploded across the country. The woman who walked too soon. Billionaire paralyzed by guilt, not injury. Black girl who brought down the mansion. Social media had made Amara a symbol. But she refused sponsorships, interviews, documentaries. The truth wasn't for sale. When a journalist once asked her why she turned down a 7-figure deal to sell her story, she answered simply, because healing doesn't come with a price tag. Back at the center, Ruth sipped tea in the office that once belonged to a lawyer who helped Victoria hide her crimes. Now, herbs lined the bookshelves, and the air smelled of peppermint and resilience. What made you go back that day? Ruth asked her granddaughter. Amara paused. Because I knew she wasn't just lying to others. She was lying to herself. And I couldn't let that be the end of her story. Ruth nodded, her eyes full. You didn't destroy her, Amara. You freed her. And everyone watching. Outside, a group of teens planted a community garden where the estate's tennis court once stood. Inside, Amara wrote in her notebook, truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. But when it's finally heard, everything changes. And just across the city, in a small gray cell, Victoria closed her eyes. Not to escape, but to finally face what she'd spent years avoiding. The truth. If you believe in second chances and breaking barriers, Share this story. To viewers in the USA, UK, and Canada, your voice matters. Together, we can change the world.